Hi, everyone. Welcome back to The Blue Wave English, the podcast where we learn English through everyday stories, natural conversations, and real-life situations that can help you understand not only what people say in English, but also how they actually communicate in their daily lives. I'm Emma.
And I'm Ryan. Today's episode is a little different because we're talking about something that almost everyone has experienced at some point, especially if you've ever had a busy day at work when you were trying to finish several things at the same time.
That's right. And today's story is about a mistake I made at work that started with something incredibly small, something that probably should have taken only a few seconds to prevent, but somehow turned into a problem that kept our entire team at the office until 8 o'clock at night.
Wait a minute. You kept the entire team at work until 8?
Well, when you say it like that, it sounds much worse.
I'm just trying to give our listeners the full picture.
Okay, fair enough. Yes, I made a mistake. And yes, it affected the whole team. But luckily, we managed to fix everything before the deadline.
That's good, because for a second, I thought this episode was going to turn into a workplace disaster story.
It almost felt like one that afternoon.
So, what happened?
Well, it all started with an email.
Just one email?
One email that I should have checked twice.
All right, I'm listening.
Let's go back to Tuesday morning. It was a busy Tuesday morning, and my team was preparing an important report that had to be completed by the next morning, so everyone was already moving from one task to another, checking customer records, updating documents, reviewing numbers, and trying to make sure that everything was accurate before the final report was submitted.
Sounds like one of those mornings when you look at the clock and realize that 3 hours have passed, but you still feel like you haven't finished anything.
That's exactly what it felt like. I had several things on my desk, but one of my main responsibilities that morning was to check some customer information and send the updated file to my coworker, Mike, because he needed the information before he could update our customer list.
So you had an important task, but it wasn't anything unusual.
Right. It was a normal part of my job, and I had done similar tasks many times before, so I wasn't worried about it at all. I opened the customer's file, reviewed the information, checked a few details, and then opened my email to send everything to Mike.
And this is where the trouble begins.
Yes. I typed a quick message that said, "Hi, Mike. I finished checking the customer information, and I've attached the updated file for you to review. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thanks, Emma."
That sounds professional.
It did. And that's probably why I didn't notice the problem. I read the message quickly, saw the sentence, "I've attached the updated file," and because I was already thinking about my next task, I clicked send without actually checking whether the file was attached.
Oh no.
Yep,
You forgot the attachment.
I forgot the attachment. The funny thing is that I had written the words, "I've attached the file," so somewhere in my brain I had already decided that the file must be there.
That's a dangerous little shortcut your brain took.
It really was. I closed the email, went back to work, and continued with my morning without realizing that anything was wrong. About 20 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Mike.
Hey, Emma, do you have a minute? I just want to confirm something about the customer information you sent me.
Sure. What do you need to know?
I just want to make sure we're talking about the same customer before I update the list.
Now, this is where things got complicated. We had two customers with very similar names. One was John Miller, and the other was John M. Miller. Earlier that morning, I had looked at information for both customers, so when Mike mentioned the name, I immediately thought he was asking about the second customer.
So instead of asking him to clarify which customer he meant, you just assumed you knew.
Unfortunately, yes. I said, "Oh, you mean John M. Miller, right?"
No, I'm talking about John Miller.
And somehow I still didn't realize that we were talking about different customers.
Oh, Emma.
I know. I said, "Yes, I checked his information this morning, and everything should be correct."
You sounded confident,
Very confident.
even though the file wasn't attached to the email?
I had completely forgotten about that. I thought Mike had the information in front of him, and I thought he was simply calling to confirm something before updating the list.
That makes the situation much more serious, because Mike was depending on your answer before moving forward.
Yes, and that's what I didn't realize at the time.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to make sure before I update everything.
I replied, "No problem," and we ended the call.
And then you went back to work like nothing had happened.
Yes. I went back to my desk, answered some emails, worked on another document, and even grabbed another cup of coffee because I thought I was having a pretty normal day.
Meanwhile, Mike was updating the customer list based on the information you had confirmed.
That's right. He updated the list. Another coworker used that information to prepare another section of the report, and eventually, several people were working with information that they believed had already been checked.
And nobody knew there was a problem.
Not yet. For several hours, everything seemed completely fine. Then, around 4 in the afternoon, one of my coworkers came over to my desk. She looked a little confused and said, "Emma, can you take a look at this? Something doesn't seem right."
And you probably thought it was just a small correction.
I did. I said, "Sure," and walked over to her computer. She showed me the customer list, and at first I didn't see anything unusual. Then I noticed the customer's name. I looked at it again. Then I looked at the information underneath the name. And suddenly, I felt my stomach drop.
You knew.
I knew something was wrong. I said, "Wait, this isn't the right customer." My coworker looked at me and said, "What do you mean? I thought this was the information you confirmed."
Oh, that's the moment when everything came back to you, isn't it?
Yes. Suddenly, I remembered the phone call with Mike. I remembered the two similar names. I remembered that I hadn't asked him for the account number. And then I remembered the email.
The missing attachment.
The missing attachment. I immediately opened my sent folder and searched for the email. There it was. The message said, "I've attached the updated file," but there was nothing attached. I just stared at the screen for a few seconds. I couldn't believe I had done that. Then I thought, "Oh my goodness, this is why Mike didn't have the information I thought he had."
And because you misunderstood which customer he meant, you gave him a confident answer about the wrong person.
That's what happened. One small mistake had turned into a misunderstanding, and that misunderstanding had affected the work of several other people.
What did you do next?
I went straight to Mike and said, "Mike, I need to apologize because I just realized what happened."
What happened?
I told him, "I forgot to attach the file to the email this morning, and when you called me, I misunderstood which customer you were asking about, so I gave you the wrong confirmation."
That must have been a difficult thing to admit.
It was embarrassing, but I knew I had to be honest. I said, "I'm really sorry. I should have checked the attachment before sending the email, and I should have asked you to clarify the customer's name before confirming the information." Mike was obviously frustrated, but he didn't yell at me.
Okay. We need to figure out how much of the report was affected and fix it before tomorrow morning.
That's actually a pretty professional response.
It was, and I appreciated it. So the entire team started checking the information again. One person checked the customer names, another checked the account numbers, another compared the records with the original documents, and I went through every part of the information that I had handled.
I imagine the office became very quiet.
Very quiet. Everybody was focused. We weren't talking much because we were trying to work as quickly and carefully as possible. Then we looked at the clock. It was already 5 o'clock.
And you still had a lot of work left.
A lot. At 6 o'clock, we were still working. At 7 o'clock, we were still there. At that point, nobody even mentioned going home. We were all just sitting around the office with our computers open, drinking coffee, checking documents, and trying to finish everything before the deadline.
That sounds exhausting.
It was. But there was also a funny moment. One of my coworkers looked around the office and said, "Well, at least we're all suffering together." Everyone laughed because it was either laugh or cry at that point.
That's a very realistic workplace moment.
Definitely. The funny thing was that after that, everyone seemed a little more relaxed, and we started helping each other instead of worrying about how much work was left.
Sometimes, a little humor really does help when everyone is stressed.
It does. Finally, a little after 8 o'clock, we finished. We checked the entire report one more time, and this time we were extremely careful. We checked every customer name, every account number, every document, and every attachment.
I'm guessing you personally checked every attachment at least 5 times.
Maybe 6. I wasn't taking any chances. The good news was that we had corrected everything, and the final report was ready before the deadline the next morning. I felt incredibly relieved, but I also felt terrible because my mistake had caused everyone to stay late. Before we left, I apologized to everyone again and thanked them for helping me fix the problem.
And then you decided to make it up to them.
Yes. The next day, I bought dinner for the whole team. I told them, after keeping everyone at work until 8 because of my mistake, the least I can do is buy dinner. One of my coworkers laughed and said, "Well, we were already going to forgive you, but free food definitely makes it easier."
That's a pretty good team.
It really was. And honestly, the experience taught me something much more important than simply remembering to attach a file. I learned that when you're busy, it's very easy to believe that being fast means you're being productive. But sometimes rushing through a simple task can create much more work later.
That's an important distinction.
Absolutely. If I had spent 10 seconds checking the email before clicking send, I could have prevented hours of extra work for the entire team. And if I had spent another 10 seconds asking Mike, "Which John Miller are you referring to?" we probably could have avoided the second problem as well.
So now, when you're working with customer information, what do you do differently?
I slow down. Before I send an important email, I check 3 things: the recipient, the message, and the attachment. If someone asks me about a customer with a similar name, I don't guess anymore. I ask for the account number, the full name, or another detail that can help me make sure we're talking about the same person. And if I'm not sure about something, I simply say, "Let me double-check that before I confirm it."
That's probably one of the most useful sentences someone can learn for the workplace.
I agree. You don't have to pretend that you know everything. Being professional doesn't mean having an immediate answer to every question. Sometimes being professional means knowing when to pause, ask for clarification, and make sure the information is correct before you give someone an answer.
And that's a lesson that applies far beyond the workplace. Whether you're studying, working, communicating with friends, or dealing with something important in everyday life, taking a moment to check your understanding can save you from a much bigger problem later.
Yes, and I think mistakes are also a good reminder that we're human. Nobody gets everything right all the time. What matters is how you respond when something goes wrong. You can hide the mistake, blame someone else, or pretend that everything is fine, but none of those choices will solve the problem. It's much better to be honest, take responsibility, help fix what went wrong, and learn from the experience.
And maybe buy everyone dinner afterward.
That's one way to handle it.
Well, Emma, I think your story gives us a pretty memorable lesson for today.
I hope so. And if you're listening right now, remember that a small mistake doesn't have to define you, especially if you're willing to admit it, correct it, and make sure you don't repeat it.
Before you send an important email, take a few seconds to check the recipient. Read the message carefully and make sure the correct attachment is actually there.
And when someone asks you about important information, don't be afraid to ask questions if you're not completely sure what they mean.
A simple question can sometimes save hours of unnecessary work.
And if you do make a mistake, take responsibility instead of wasting time trying to hide it.
Because mistakes happen, but what you learn from them can make you better at what you do.
That's all for today's episode of the Blue Wave English.
We hope you enjoyed the story, and we hope you picked up some useful English expressions that you can use in your own conversations.
Keep listening, keep practicing, and remember that you don't need to understand every single word the first time you listen.
Listen again, pay attention to the expressions, and try repeating some of the longer sentences out loud.
That's a great way to build your listening and speaking skills naturally.
Thanks for spending some time with us today.
We'll see you in the next episode of the Blue Wave English.
Take care, everyone.
Bye!